Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country presented by Harrah's Auction Casino. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale on what has been an eventful week for Arizona Athletics. A lot to talk about this week, Shane, and an awesome guest that we have on, head coach Clancy Shields of the men's tennis team, who is in the Sweet 16 this week against Columbia. And call them America's team. Say what you want.
Calling Arizona America's team to be specific.
That's correct. Yes, Arizona is America's team.
Yeah,
not Columbia. Okay. Nonetheless, it is an exciting week. There is so much to talk about. But before we get into everything, I touched on this on Twitter that I went to this Arizona event last week. It was last Thursday night up at Culinary Dropout in the Yard in Central Phoenix. You unfortunately were unable to make it. I put out some posts on Twitter of my experience of everything. So I want to kind of run over a few things, get your thoughts on what I have to say and whatnot. So
yeah, I really wanted to be there, but Thursday was just kind of the day from hell and I just wasn't able to make it work, but I'm glad you were able to go out there and rep the podcast.
So I went up to Tommy Lloyd, and very nice guy. And I was with Chris from AZ Bandcat Sports. You see him on Twitter. He's got a very popular account. And he and I were standing there along with a buddy of mine, Jared. And so I say to Tommy, I said, listen, we'd love to have you on Wildcat Country. And he said,
could have told you how that was going to go.
He said, I don't do podcasts. I said, okay, well, that's fine. He said, anybody that does a podcast, I kind of look at them as like sitting in their mother's basement. I was like, well, that's guilty as charged. Okay. Or not. And nonetheless, fair enough. I said, well, he says, well, I don't do social media either.
That's true.
And I said, well, is it hurting you with recruiting? And he gives me this look. He's like, what do you think? Yeah, I got made fun of by Tommy Lloyd. That was a dumb question.
And you know what? Based on his press conferences, I can picture exactly how he said it and exactly how he looked. Yeah. None of his responses do not surprise me in the least.
No, he was a character, though. A nice guy. I got a picture with him, whatnot. Okay, so Brent Brennan went up to later on, told him about, said, hey, you're on Wildcat Country. Oh, yeah, I love it. You guys, anytime you want me on over the summer, hit me up. Let's do it. Great. I asked him, I said, so what's the, the Tacario Davis news had broken a day or two before. I said, what's it feel like to have Tacario? He says, listen, we were in the dark. Great guy, great kid. Really glad to have him back. Got a great team. I said, so where do you sit scholarship wise? And he said, we have about 14 left. And that was as of last week. And that they were hosting recruiting visits for the next 5 to 7 weeks. Each of the next 5 to 7 weekends, they were having recruiting visits. So, if you want to talk about football recruiting, that's straight from the horse's mouth there as far as Tommy Lloyd goes. All right. Desiree Reed-Francois, absolute gem, outstanding, very friendly, knew how to work the room. When I asked someone in the athletic department, Desiree compared to Dave Hickey, apples to oranges. No offense to Dave, but you just one knows how to work the room, the other one doesn't. So I said, I'm pulling the Wildcat Country line. I do that. I'm sorry it gets tired when the stories. But I say, hey, I co-host this podcast with Shane. And she says, oh, hang on a second. She pulls up her Spotify and there's our logo right there on the front page of her Spotify. And she said, oh, I need to follow this, and followed us on Spotify. So nice. Desiree, it was great meeting you last week. We'd love to have you on. We will figure out a way to hopefully do that sometime this summer.
Yep.
Very, very impressed by her and her enthusiasm. And same with Brent. Brent got up and Tommy. Those guys got up and they owned that room. And Tommy said, you know what? I have to do a better job of coaching. And Brent said, we're gonna have a great team this year. You better be out at Arizona Stadium. That's what I want to see. That's what I wanted to see. Came away very surprised. Erica Barnes, talked to her for a bit. She's great. I can't say enough good things about her. Just interesting getting her perspective on when Jed Fish left, that they were snowed in Pullman, as had been some of the rumors.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go into details about that, but I will say this. As far as Brent, what I came to understand from this, reading between the lines, Brent Brennan was the only choice to replace, and it was an immediate choice.
It's a quick decision. Yeah, I think they had to make a quick decision, especially in today's day and age with the transfer portal and guys having a chance to leave and talking to different guys and different coaches. Within probably minutes of Jed leaving, and you had to make the decision fast. And it was they already done their research on Brent, and he was absolutely, I think, the right guy to hire. And I think that time will show that it was a good choice. Regardless of how the season goes, I think long-term, it certainly will be. But yeah, I'm disappointed I wasn't able to go. I've been to those before. I remember in 2017, they had one. I think they do one of those every year. Rich Rodriguez was out there, Sean Miller.
Right. Yep.
Adia Barnes, who's still, she wasn't at this event, but she still coaches at Arizona. Got to talk to all of them, Dave Feeke, but it's crazy how quickly times change. But yeah, a little, I was, you sent me the picture of you and Tommy Lloyd, and I was disappointed I wasn't able to be out there, but hopefully next year we'll be able to do it.
Yeah, it was great. This was the best one that I can remember. Talked to John Court, who's the gymnastics coach, great
Oh, yeah.
guy. I finally got a chance to meet Brian Jeffries, Bruce Pascoe, and Reggie Geary, three guests on our program.
Sure.
Awesome to finally, introduce myself in person. The next year, we're going to be there. This was a great event by Arizona, and I give them a lot of props. So just the fact that the coaches were so fan friendly, that they weren't just standing in a corner, that they were working the room. I think Ricky Hunley was there. I think Chuck Cecil was there. I heard Rob Waldrop was there. I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but there was really a good turnout. So anytime wherever you may live, if they were to come out, if you're listening anywhere in Arizona, and if they were to do anything in California, and those of you listening, get on out there, because the FaceTime and just getting to know these people on a different level than what you see them, I think it's important.
It's a rare opportunity. I mean, just a couple hundred people, and you get to actually talk to them face to face. I mean, there's no other time, probably throughout the year, you're going to have that opportunity, which is why I really wish I could have been there. But I'm glad you were able to do it. So yeah,
there's my summary of that. I hope I covered everything. If anybody has any questions, you know where to find me on Twitter or whatnot. But it was a great event, and just great talking to everybody. Great people that work for the University of Arizona. All right. It is time for Buy or Sell, which is presented by our friends at Ice Shaker. Go to iceshaker.com. Use promo code Wildcat Country, capital W, capital C, and get $5 off. Make sure to purchase, or to fill out, easy for me to say, the post-purchase survey.
Post-purchase survey, yes.
Thank you. Yes, try saying that 5 times fast. When you do that, mention Wildcat Country. Shane and I will be very, very happy with you. All right. Number one, Shane, if Caleb Love and KJ Lewis return, as is speculated, next season's basketball roster on paper looks better than this one. Buy or sell?
Trying not to be knee jerk about it, but yeah, I'll buy it. I love the Anthony Del Orso commitment, because I really hated seeing Morauskas transfer, and I thought Arizona really could have used his shooting next season, but Del Orso should fill that role and then some. If and the other commits, the other transfers that have been added, the recruiting class looks great. If Love doesn't return, hopefully Josan Senon reclassifies and fills that role. It sounds like that's kind of what they're waiting on there. But either way, at least on paper, like you said, this team is shaping up to be as formidable as deep as last year's, if not better. Biggest concern probably going forward is who's going to be the backup point guard. Is Conrad Martinez ready to take on that role? Because Jaden Bradley is going to be the starter for sure. They're loaded in the front court and with wings, but as of now, the depth chart of point guard goes Jaden Bradley, Conrad Martinez, as far as it looks. We saw a couple glimpses of him last year, and they were positive, but that's all they were. They were glimpses. That's really my only concern at this point. KJ Lewis apparently rejected the G League combine invite. Sounds like he's probably going to be back. Caleb Love, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, if those two guys are back, I think they look, on paper, you never know how it's all going to come together. On paper, it's certainly as good, if not better, than this past year.
I'm gonna temper my expectations here. I mean, you lost Umar Ballo, Keyshawn Johnson, Pella Larson. All right, so you're replacing them with, you've got Trey Townsend.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, small school Oakland kid. We'll see if he's, better on if he's great on the big stage. Toby Awaka, defensive presence from Tennessee. Del Orso from Campbell. Crazy that it's the second Campbell transfer to Arizona, along with Cedric Henderson in the last few years. But I think Tommy Lloyd's hoping that he's this year's Dalton Connect, who really blew up at Tennessee. So he's open with that. Carter Bryant, obviously very highly touted. Jamari Phillips, Emmanuel Steffen. Those two probably not going to play a lot. A little concerning there. I think the depth is better.
Yeah.
Can I say that everything else is better? I think Caleb Love is probably your backup point guard too. If that could be. I think Conrad might get more minutes. I mean, Conrad's a pretty good player. He's just tiny. Yeah, that's the problem. Like the guy, he's skilled. I mean, from what we saw, skilled. Can he defend anybody?
Well, and another question might be, you talk about having an alpha, and Caleb Love certainly was that guy last season for Arizona. If he leaves, who's going to take that spot? And it could be in any number of guys. Jaden Bradley was big late in games, but who's going to be that guy who's not going to be afraid to take over and take, for better or worse, take those last second shots? And if it's not Love, then they need to find another guy, because we've seen what happens when they don't have one of those guys.
Here's the thing about Sanon. I think personally that he is gone if Love comes back. Like, he's never going to play at Arizona if Caleb. And I'm not saying you don't want him sitting around another year and letting somebody else throw money at him. That's my point with that. If Love doesn't come, then I think I would hope that he comes, and I think you plug him in the starting lineup right away. I think he's a guy that and you play. I mean, Arizona's going to play probably a smaller lineup more often than not. How many minutes a game is Krivas going to get? He's not getting 30. I mean, Carter Bryant's going to get some. Toby Awaka's going to get some. Townsend's too small to play the 5 and maybe even the 4. He's more of a 3. It's going to be an interesting roster. I like what Tommy's done. That's why we didn't panic like last year. Guilty as charged. I didn't panic. Let me say that. I like the roster. I'm just not going to, I'm not going to be as confident as you are saying it's a better team than last year. All right.
That's fair. And the last thing I'll throw in there is Awaka. You don't necessarily have to worry about taking him out late in games if you're ahead by a few points, because he's a decent free throw shooter, unlike Balo. 70% free throw shooter, which is great for a guy that size.
Good for Umar for getting his 1 million plus from Indiana, because I won't miss seeing those free throws. Number 2, Tommy hinted at a game when he was here in Phoenix this year in Phoenix against a well-known team. The rumor is it's UCLA. So buy or sell, Shane, UCLA in Phoenix against Arizona is greater than the Purdue game in Las Vegas that was just canceled.
Yeah, I mean, I'll buy that it would be a bigger deal for fans. I'll sell them that it wouldn't be as impressive looking on Arizona's resume. Most likely.
Oh, come on.
You can just chill for a second.
All right,
so,
all right.
Purdue probably won't be as good next season, and UCLA's got to be better than they were last season. But I still think Purdue is going to be a better team, and a win over them would probably stand up better heading into March. But again, from a selfish perspective, I'll take whoever we can get in Phoenix, because I'll be there 100%, and more fans, more Arizona fans will be there. I'm sure they'll show up in Vegas too. But we went to the game with the Suns Arena against Alabama. It was a great atmosphere this past year, and if they play again in Phoenix, I think it'll be great. It would be great for the folks like us who graduated at U of A and then took the ASU alums jobs. And it would be fantastic to hang out and do that again, especially if it's against UCLA in particular, it would be a crazy atmosphere, and I hope that they can keep that going.
Yeah, I would hope that place would be darn near sold out. Like, people from Tucson drive up. Hopefully it's not a 9:00 game like the one that we went to was.
Yeah.
We don't need ASU beforehand. Just get UCLA and Arizona. It'll sell out the joint, and I'll pay whatever ticket price is necessary to sit in the lower deck to watch whiny Mick Cronin hopefully get his butt kicked. And I would assume, if that were to happen, that the following year the return game would be in Palm Springs, which is also, maybe it's worth a drive over there. 4-hour
There
drive.
would be more U of A fans there than UCLA fans for sure.
You think so? In Palm Springs?
Oh, yeah. UCLA fans aren't going to travel for basketball. No.
You would think. They talk about how great they are.
They talk about it. That's all they do.
All right. Let's move on to football here. Takario Davis is back. So, Shane, how the offseason played out should be considered a major victory for Arizona football as of now.
100% yes by that. Even if Takario left, I consider it a win, because I didn't think there was a chance in hell that Brennan and his staff were going to retain so many key guys from last year's team. But with Davis, now you've got multiple potential first-round picks on this team going into next season. I think the defensive line is probably my biggest concern at this point. But like you said, they're hosting potential recruits. I'm assuming transfers as well the next several weeks. So maybe they fill in some of those holes. And they've already filled in a couple. The running back position, like we talked about, maybe a little uncertain about that as well. But you look at quarterback, receiver, offensive line, now the secondary as well. It's been a masterclass at retaining top guys in the new world of NIL and the transfer portal. I don't know what else this staff could have reasonably done in terms of bringing guys back. Absolutely phenomenal job.
All right, I'll give you that. I think it's a major victory, assuming that T-Mac's injury is not all that significant, which hopefully it's not. As far as keeping players, and one thing that a few people in the athletic department last week wanted to point out, when I said, "Oh, thank you, Humberto Lopez, for doing that," and Sam Fox and others, and they both said the same thing. Nope, Brent Brennan. Brent Brennan kept these guys together.
Yeah.
And don't underestimate that. And they were both very definitive in making that statement.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
No, no, I agree. I'm sure that's true. I'm sure that, regardless of the boosters you have who are willing to help keep some of these guys in the new world we live in college athletics, I think it begins and ends with the coaches. And again, I think the number one goal of every college football player should be, and I think for most of them it is, to play somewhere where you have a chance to get better and play at the next level. That's what they
Yeah.
want to do. And I think that's what Brent Brennan and his staff were able to sell successfully to a lot of these guys is, look, not just, obviously finish what you start, loyalty, et cetera. You can bang that drum as much as you want, but look, you stay here. We're going to help you develop. We're going to help you fulfill your goals, and we can do it together. And, you built a foundation here. And so I think all of that together, we talked about Brent Brennan and how we had his brother on talking about just what a great communicator he is. Barrett Baker's talked about that as well. And, after, listening and chatting with Coach Brennan and talking to guys who know him well, it doesn't surprise me that, again, yeah, the donors can only do so much. There are plenty of schools that can pay. And I'm sure that Brent Brennan was the decisive factor for most of those guys.
So, number 4, Shane, ASU's top receiver Elijah Badger visited Arizona last week. Buy or sell? We want him, right?
Well, yes, we do. My guess is he'll go somewhere else because he's so highly coveted. But since he obviously knows Bobby Wade well, Bobby Wade coached the ASU before he came back home where he belongs. He did make a visit to Tucson this past weekend. I will admit that before we played ASU in Tempe last year, I was relieved to hear that Badger wasn't going to play, because he's their best offensive weapon. He concerned me more than anyone on offense for ASU.
Well, clearly, yeah.
He has 135 catches, 1,600 yards, and 10 touchdowns in his last 2 seasons. But I have to ask you, Eric, are you going to be a dirty, rotten hypocrite on this? Because
No.
I remember what you said about players transferring to rival schools and how against it you were.
All right. Do I want Elijah Badger on the team? Yes. Does it kind of make me a little nauseous to think that? Yes. I said when Jade LaVille transferred from ASU women's basketball to Arizona that I didn't like it. Now, it's nothing against Jade. I don't like that Jacob Kongaika went from Arizona to ASU.
Yeah, right after the season ended, he flipped over too.
I think it's gross. I don't like it. Now, would I root for the player? You bet. But I think, as we've learned, Shane, you root for the uniform. Rooting for players these days in college athletics is a lot more difficult.
Do you make a bit of an exception, though, because obviously, he was coached by Bobby Wade at ASU?
No.
Nope. Doesn't matter.
When you play in a game against your rival and you go through all of the culture and all of the hate that goes with it, and then you go on the other side, I cannot get behind that.
Well, now what about at the coaching level then with Bobby Wade? There been Danny Gonzalez coached at ASU. He called U of A the no 200 gang because
I get it. Vince Amy's another one.
Yeah.
Former ASU guy.
There's been a lot that have gone back and forth. On the basketball side, Russ Pennell.
Greg Byrne was our athletic director.
Right.
And by the way, his son still works at Arizona. One of his sons still works at Arizona. Greg went to ASU. Artie Moreno would not donate to Arizona because Greg Byrne was an ASU guy.
Is that right?
That is confirmed.
Okay.
I don't know his level of donation. I don't know if his level, I don't know now what it is. I know he's involved with the athletic department, but I know that he stopped donating when Greg Byrne was there because of that reason. So,
but do you feel the same way about coaches jumping from one side to the other?
Less than I do players.
Why?
Because with coaches, you're not, unless you're an alum. Like Bobby Wade is an Arizona alum coaching.
Yeah.
I don't love it. I don't love when you're like Greg Byrne is an ASU alum. I like Greg. Greg did a good job at U of A, but I don't love it. But as a player, when you're in that locker room and you are spewing all this Arizona hate, and then you go the next year to play for them, that's gross. Okay. It's gross.
But with that said, if Elijah Badger were to announce tomorrow that he's an Arizona Wildcat, you'd be happy with it. Okay.
You bet.
I just wanted to be clear on that point before we move forward.
You can call me whatever in the comments. I'm sure somebody will. I don't like it, but I hope he comes to Arizona. I want to talk more about ASU and Arizona later in the program. That's kind of a tease.
Okay.
But the last thing I'll talk about this segment, that DJ Scooter is
Mhm.
out. And I was all excited that he's going with Jed. I guess he's one of Brendan Carroll's high school friends, the guy, that annoying DJ,
Mhm.
but he's already been replaced with a new DJ. Shane, is this a win or is it still a loss for
Oh,
us?
wait, he was replaced. I didn't know that. I didn't see
Yeah,
that.
there's a new
Oh no.
DJ that's in there. Yep.
Well,
Yep.
I will say this. I was ready to say, and I'll still say this. Arizona's biggest win in the transfer portal so far was actually done by Jed Fish and bringing him to DJ Scooter to Seattle. But I will say that the DJ itself, I don't necessarily have a problem with. It's that, like, when you yell at inappropriate times, it's like, you pick your spots. Don't talk over the PA announcer. Don't go over the band. If
Hmm.
you're revving up the crowd pregame, that's one thing. But if we're going to continue this tradition of this yelling random times during the game, I don't think that adds anything. So I'm glad that Mr. Scooter is out. I am
Yeah.
disappointed to learn that another DJ. I don't think it's necessary to college football game. I don't.
I don't either. And you and I are going to come off as old men here with this take.
Well, we are old men.
Okay, fine. We're in our 40s. But I could say this. I don't know that it's net. You can't have. There's a music person who at every arena or stadium that's always played music. Why do we? And they still do. Like, why do we need a DJ? It's gimmicky to me.
I agree.
I don't like it.
I
With
agree.
that said, I agree with what you said though. With a new DJ, hopefully they are more aware. And no offense to Scooter, but
Well,
he was not as aware as he should have been. And I can only imagine the frustration that our buddy Jeff Dean, as a PA announcer, had at times.
I'll tell you what. When we get Desiree Reed Francois on this show, we'll talk to her about the DJ and about just maybe help persuade her to do the right thing. Then I would also like to talk to her about bringing back Fight Wildcats Fight after they score a touchdown versus Bear Down, Arizona, because I like that tradition as well. That's number 2 on my list. Number 1 is the DJ thing.
Wow. And that's for another episode of Wildcat Country, but we're not done yet. Clancy Shields, head coach of the Sweet 16 bound Arizona men's tennis team, coming up next here on Wildcat Country.
What's up, Wildcat Country? Chris Gronkowski here, and I'm at the Ice Shaker Warehouse, the proud sponsor of the Wildcat Country podcast. And I got something new and exciting to show you. We're talking about the 4D printed University of Arizona shaker bottles with the Legacy Championships on it. Check it out now at iceshaker.com.
Shane, the last time you had Coach Shields on, I wasn't on this program, so it's an honor to get to talk to the head coach of U of A men's tennis, Clancy Shields, who, by the way, his team is in the Sweet 16 for the 3rd time in 4 years. A very, very impressive accomplishment. Coach, before we get going, first of all, congratulations on all of your success. Can you explain the format for those out there who don't understand of how a tennis weekend works, like the Sweet 16 against Columbia? How many do you have to win out of how many? Can you explain how that all works?
Sure. So you start off the match with 3 doubles, and whoever takes 2 of those 3 gets the first point. And even though it's a small 1-point margin, it's usually with 2 even teams can decide the match. And then we roll into singles on 6 courts, and each singles match counts as a point, and it's first to 4 points, and whoever gets to first to 4 wins. So that's kind of the format. It basically, the games is first to 4 points. If you get to 3 all, it's like a no ad scoring, and that next point wins, and sets to 6. And so it's pretty fast paced. Usually the matches go around 2.5 hours, and sometimes they can go a little longer.
Next time Eric just asked me, I could have explained that for you.
I think it's a good
No,
explanation.
it's a good point, because certainly a lot of new fans. We saw the number of fans that came out to watch you guys in last week, and I'm sure some of them are probably asking questions as they were going to, for those who were just learning about it. So no, I'm glad Eric touched on that. I'm just giving him a hard time. So Coach, and thanks again for joining us. Glad to chat with you again. We've seen a number of Arizona programs have some impressive turnarounds, and your program might be the most impressive of all. And I'm not just saying that because you're with us right now. Okay. You noted that your teams went, I think, 0-19 in conference play in your first 2 years in Tucson. Now you're regular season conference champs, conference tournament champs. When we talked 2 years ago, I went back and watched some of it. I asked you about the rise of the program, and you mentioned obviously the importance of recruiting. You said that beyond that, though, there's just no substitute for hard work. Has just outworking, out practicing the competition, all of that been the most important factor for the rise of this program?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about my first two seasons where we went 0-19 in conference play, and those are some of my favorite memories here. I mean, because it was really, you're just fighting a daily battle of trying to put your culture the way you want it. And I think we worked really hard those first 2-3 years of getting a good foundation and establishing our culture. And, now we're kind of seeing the fruits of some of that labor. But yeah, I mean, look, it's a myriad of a lot of different things. We have to wear a lot of hats, whether it's fundraising, recruiting, developing. Sometimes you put on you're a sports psychologist. Sometimes you're a strength and conditioning coach. Sometimes you're the van driver. This week, I feel like I'm more of a van driver.
Sure.
Get them from point A to point B. Make sure the kids are fed. But really, realistically, I think there's a human element to this. And you have to connect with the kids on a certain level to get them to buy into what it is that we do here. And I think one of the really sweet things we have in our program when the kids leave, I always meet with them and talk about their experience here. And they all say, God, like if you come to Arizona, it's a nightmare of hard work, but at the end of it, it is so rewarding and gratifying. And, they look back on their time here and they say, I wouldn't change any of it. There's always the ups and the downs and the highs and the lows, the peaks and the valleys. But I think if it was smooth sailing, it wouldn't be as much fun. And so that's certainly a big piece of the puzzle, but we've also been able to recruit some kids here who are some of the top talent in the world. And then I think that's been what's really put us over the top this year is having that great foundation. The kids are improving in our program, but then also we've done a good job recruiting and the ability to go out and beat teams, not just because we're going to try harder, but because we have the level to do it.
Yeah, I know that Swedish pipeline has been big for you, and then the recruiting realm. Your team, like Eric said, they've been this far before, and you're looking to get past this round for the first time. You have some guys on this team like Gustav Strom who have led the rise of this program. Do you think their experience, because Gustav, I think, was the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year, and now he's a senior. Do you think experience like that will be important in terms of the possibility of advancing in this tournament further?
When you have a guy like Gustav, anything's possible. And I think every one of our guys has this uniqueness to them that Gustav is kind of like works in silence a little bit. He just puts his head down and works on his court. And then you look at the end of the year and you're like, whoa, this guy went 21-3. Like he's unstoppable. He's just that for sure point for us. And up and down the line, you kind of see that even in this year, just looking at their records as we start to nominate these kids for some awards. I mean, Casper's record, he's like 20-2 on the year. Herman is 19-2. I mean, these kids have these phenomenal records, but I think they've just kind of tackled it one bite at a time, and they've kept pushing each and every day to get there. But yeah, Gustav is one of these guys who he could be playing easily in our number one spot. And sometimes it just kind of works out in the lineup where he's at 3 and so forth. But right now he's playing like a top 10 player, a top 15 player. I mean, his level in the last month is just absolutely taken off. And it happens this way for seniors. They start realizing the end of the journey is coming down, and every day they're like, this is my third to last practice. This is my last individual with coach, or my last week. And they start looking at this as really something like I get to do, and I only get a few more opportunities to do this rather than I have to go to practice. I mean, there's a real difference in their mentality the last year when they get to be here. And I think in all this craziness with this transfer portal, I just sit here shaking my head, and I just wish I could grab some of these kids and tell them the beauty of this whole thing is to get to the end of the journey, this 4th year, where you've gone through everything with his coaches and these teammates and everything. And then there's just such a great level of appreciation and gratitude for the university and all of the people who've put so much time and energy into you. And then you start playing for them, and you saw it this last weekend. These guys were playing for the fans that came out, the city of Tucson. You seeing people in the stands, our dietitian, our sports psychologist, our football coach, our basketball coach. I mean,
Right.
You looked in the stands and all you saw was people that you wanted to go die for on the court. And I just thought that this weekend was so special and cool. And I think that's the beauty of going 4 years in a program is you get to the end of the road and your heart is filled with gratitude. And that really gives you some altitude to do some great things.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool that you mentioned Tommy was out there, Brent was out there. What does that mean to you as a fellow coach? And I assume you do the same thing for big sporting events, that you'll go out and support the other team's games.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, that's why Arizona is really special, is because we all are really invested in each other. And we have a head coaches chat going on, and it goes off 20, 30 times a day because we're all supporting each other and each other's endeavors. And I guess for me, knowing that they have my back in our little world of tennis, and it's the same thing for me. I remember being home for Thanksgiving and we were playing basketball against Michigan State, and I was yelling and screaming while the whole other, the family was off eating turkey. And it was like, because this means more, this means everything to me, and all of our sports. Because when you live with these people and you see how much time and energy they put into their programs and they give their whole heart to this, everything that goes into it. And you want to support them, you want to support their kids. And, winning and losing, sometimes that can't always define a coach. I mean, there's some coaches in our building, maybe they had a down year, but they're working maybe as hard as they've ever worked, or they're putting their heart and soul into it. And I just think, winning's become a little metric for us in our program that we're doing some things right. But even the years that I was struggling here, I thought it was some of my best work as a coach. So yes, having the support with all the coaches is amazing. And I think our players feel that. And I think the camaraderie between athletes, I mean, the whole softball team came out for a first round with Boise State for a little bit. And it's just cool. Athletes supporting athletes and teams for teams. And it makes Arizona special. And it's kind of our feather in our cap here, I think, at Arizona, that we have to sell in recruiting and getting, the best people to come work here, is that when you come work here, you're part of something much bigger than yourself.
Seriously, that is so cool to hear. I mean, and how you describe it, and I can see that your enthusiasm for it. Now, as far as ranking your guys 1 through 5, or 1 through 6, in different matches, how do you decide who's your one guy that week versus your 6? Do those stay the same, kind of like baseball, where they have a Friday night starter, a Saturday night starter, and a Sunday night starter, and that usually stays the same? Or do you alternate based on the potential matchups that you see? For example, this week with Columbia, are you going to alter your 1 through 6 lineup just because you have an idea what they might do?
Yeah, that's a good question. The rule states you can only move your players up a spot or down one spot. And so throughout the course of the year, you kind of start shaping your lineup. And that's based a little bit on their fall results. But for me, we're managing these kids' headspace all the time. And I think if you keep jerking their chain around and you're moving them around, I like our guys to kind of find their spot, and then they own it. Hey, I'm going to be the best 5 in the country. I'm going to lock this spot down. And even though the guys that play at the highest spot in our lineup, they get probably the most praise and the most people watching them and following what they're doing, man, there's these unbelievable storylines happening down low in our lineup. I mean, take Nick Lagaive, for example, our 5th-year COVID senior. I mean, he tied the record for most wins in program history in singles, but he's having this phenomenal season on the back courts and doing it in the shadows. And he's our anchor in our lineup. And the reality is he's having that success because I think he's saying, you know what, I'm just going to own this spot. Coach, wherever you need me to play, I'm going to be the best 6 in the country. And if that's where you need me, that's where I'm going to be. It's the same point at 6 as it is at 1. And to have a locker room of guys that are really unselfish like that, I mean, that's really important, because in this day and age, it's all about me and what am I getting out of this? And I think our team is really putting their egos aside. It's a very low ego team. And, for a very high performing team, it's a very low ego team. And I really appreciate that as a coach. It makes my life a lot easier.
So, like Eric mentioned, your round of 16 matchup is against the 8th overall seed, Columbia. Arizona's number 9 seed, so it's kind of like an 8-9 game. Columbia School, it's obviously made some headlines in other areas, but we won't talk about. But that's going to be in New York City on Saturday. We're talking to you Wednesday night. What's the plan for the rest of the week? Are you guys finding time to enjoy yourselves and seeing some sights in between, getting some practice in?
Yeah. So the funny thing is, we came out here for the National Indoor Championships in February, and it was such we're going to New York. This is so sweet. The guys did all the sightseeing. They had an unbelievable time. And I felt like the guys they come here. It's a business trip. That's the feeling for me. I mean,
they've been there, done that.
Yes. But I just think the guys are coming here for a reason to punch their ticket to the Elite 8,
right?
And to go to the final site. And certainly, I think these road trips are so fun because I think we just have guys that love playing tennis and they want to practice all day long. I mean, we've been doing 2-a-days down here on Columbia's campus, and they've been such gracious hosts. But it was just like tonight we finished our practice, and in your mind you kind of, we're going to go 2 hours. And the makeup of a good team is that when you hit the 2 hour mark, they just want to keep going. And you're like, okay, well, my plan for practice is done, whatever you guys want to do. And they want to stay out. They want to keep hitting and they want to keep practicing. And that's when you have something special. Is these guys, you have to pull them off the court and, hey guys, we should probably manage our energy a little bit better. But that's kind of what we've been doing. We're just trying to get used to the courts. It's a very unique setup, probably one of the only setups in college tennis where they have 6 indoor courts and then their outdoor courts are built on top of them. And so you kind of have this very weird, almost like you're on top of this big parking structure. It's very windy on top of the courts. You're overlooking the Hudson River. And so there's some adjusting we're going to have to do to get used to these courts. But that's kind of our mentality here. And I think for our senior group who've meant so much to our team, we just want to position ourselves for success, that when we walk on the court on Saturday, it's not a coin flip. That the odds are so stacked in our favor that we've prepared the best we can, that we just got to go out and play and let the chips fall where they may. But Columbia is, in a lot of ways, maybe better than their ranking. They beat Tennessee earlier in the year. They've had a phenomenal year. I mean, some of their guys on their team, you look at their record and it's like none of their guys lose. And they're well coached. And so we just know it's going to be an unbelievable challenge. I don't know if they've lost anything at home this year, maybe one match. So, we're the underdog and we kind of like that position.
Well, and you could use that scene in Hoosiers for inspiration. If they're a little thrown off with on the tennis courts, you measure the net and it's the same height as it is everywhere else, right?
Yeah.
I got 2 more questions for you. Eric and I have had discussion about other programs, specifically men's basketball, about what defines a successful season. Is it a national championship, a Final Four appearance, or is it just, is having an outstanding regular season like your team has enough to be considered a great year? You're Pac-12 regular season champs, you're conference tournament champs. You've been this far in the NCAA tournament a couple of times. If the season were to end against Columbia, if this was the end of the road, would you be able to look back at this season and consider it a successful one?
Yes, when it's all said and done, you can look and say that. In the moment, heck no.
Yeah.
Like we said, we want to win a national championship. So it's like, and I think, and I'll take you back to the August. I actually remember pulling some of our leaders over because they kept saying like, we want to win a national championship. And I was getting annoyed because and I pulled our captains over and our seniors. I was like, why do you guys keep talking about winning a national championship when the work does not match what it needs to be to win a national championship? And so if you're going to start talking about that, then the work has got to add up. And the way we practice and the way we go about things has got to be different. And I think after having that conversation, the guys stopped talking about it and they just put their heads down and started working. And I genuinely think, how many programs, how many times in your career are you ever going to have a chance to go compete for that? And right now we're sitting in the Sweet 16. We're a few matches away from that. Why not? Let's take it all the way. So I think everybody in our locker room and everyone in our small group would absolutely say it's not enough. We've been here before. This is our 3rd time in the Sweet 16. We have got to keep setting the bar higher.
Yeah.
And but looking back on it, I'm so incredibly proud. I mean, we're 26-3. That has to be our best record ever in program history. We've won the Pac-12 regular season. We won the tournament, the only team outside of California to ever do it. We beat a Stanford team in the finals, who a lot of coaches would say is a top 5 team. I mean, there's so many things to hang our hat on this season. And that's the thing that you get the rest of your life. For the next 20, 30 years, we can all look back on the season and we're going to be bonded together we're going to have an unbelievable championship ring. We're going to have the season to look back on, and that will really bond us. But in this moment, absolutely, we're not satisfied. And I think that's what's made this team special compared to the last few years team. We accomplished things in the last few years and our guys were happy and maybe content. And this year, I think we are so laser focused on taking this all the way that we're not letting any distractions get in our way.
Sure.
I'm certainly not getting, I've really challenged myself as a coach. I'm not going to get too high either. When we won against Auburn, it was just like any other match, guys. I'm proud of you. We did the work today. We got the job done. Let's get, kind of like the Patriots. I'm almost feeling like I'm like my inner Bill Belichick, just so boring and so like, non-personable. But I think that's almost a little key to success with these players because they feed off of that with you as a coach. If you're starting to hoot and holler and like celebrate it, then I think they get a little full of themselves and that, hey, the job's done. And the job is not done for us.
Yeah. Having success definitely makes you hungry for even more. Last question for you. With the move to the Big 12 next season, and obviously that was centered on football primarily. Your thoughts overall on conference realignment and how it impacts other programs like yours? Like, do you think? I mean, a lot of good competition in the Big 12 for sure, but would it, like, if you in a perfect world, would you rather like be able to maybe focus more on that local competition and then the teams in the Pac-12 and maybe branch off from football if you had that opportunity, or do you embrace the challenge of the Big 12?
Yes, I mean, as Tommy said in one of our head coaches meetings, like it's over. The Pac-12 is over. There's nothing to dwell on anymore. And we wanted to finish on top in the Pac-12, and we did. And now we're gonna move on to this new conference and this new challenge. And for me personally, this is my 8th season at Arizona. And I remember talking to a very good coach one time, and he said, look, I think the shelf life of every coach is about 8 years at a place. And I kind of looked at this for me as a coach, that this is like starting a new job all over again. And you're going to go to new places, and you're going to go new competition and new challenge. And I'm kind of reinvigorated about this unbelievable opportunity of moving into this new conference, and what can we do in this place, and how can we tackle the challenge of the Big 12. And I'm really excited for football and basketball and our other sports too. I mean, I look at the football and I'm like, Ames, Iowa, and they're selling out their stadium, and they're crazy fans, and Oklahoma State. And I mean, we just have this rabid fan base in football. And then basketball, you're probably the best basketball conference there is. I mean, when I saw that Kansas is going to be coming to McHale next year, I'm like, whoa, like
Huge.
I have the season tickets for basketball, and I love going to those games, but I just feel like, man, I can't wait for next season's basketball. So I think it's going to be fun. I think there's a lot of question marks about college athletics right now, and some of it's really scary. I mean, and with all of it going on, and I'm not in that world so much with football and basketball where they're dealing with NIL and so forth, but it bothers me a little bit, because I think the mission of what we're trying to do with these kids, we're getting away from this a little bit. And I understand the dollars and cents about all this, but what we do here as coaches is so important in how we develop these kids. And, I'm the youngest of 5 kids. And I always looked at it when I was a coach, I always wanted to serve people. I wanted to become a teacher. And so I first started off my career being a teacher. And then I said, you know what, I can have more of an impact being a college coach. So I jumped into this, but I always looked at this as like, I'm the youngest of 5 kids. How did my older siblings treat me? And the older sibling, the love they had for me, the care they had for me, how they taught me everything about life. It's the same thing we're doing in this coaching industry. Is like, these kids come in here ill-equipped for the real world, and they're going to spend 4 years with you, and you're going to teach them all these unbelievable values. That's when they leave the University of Arizona, they're going to go kill it in whatever they do in life, whether it's professional athletics, whether it's a job. I think what we're doing here is really important. And I feel bad that we're getting away from that mission a little bit, because I think it's really cool what we do. And I hope at some point the pendulum switches the other way, and we start focusing on what's important.
Coach, last week on the show, I said you deserved a lifetime contract for what you've done at Arizona over the last, 3-4 years. All right. You mentioned the whole 8 years changing, job. We want to keep you long-term. What you've done is great. All right. I want to ask one more formatting question. And Haley, the SID, kind of explained this before you came on. If you were to win this weekend, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, what do the next few weeks look like for you and the team? And how does the postseason work from the Elite Eight on?
Yeah, it's a good question. So if we are to get through this week, the final site is in Stillwater, Oklahoma. It's the Elite Eight, and it's all there. It's 3 matches in Stillwater. And then right after that is the individual championships, which we have 2 guys, Colton Smith and Jay Friend, are in there. And it's just, I don't even think we're going to come back to Tucson. The guys literally pack their bags for the summer. Like, I'm going to go, we're going to do this whole long trip, and then they're going to go home. And, but for us, it's a really sweet time of the year to spend with these guys, because they just finished their finals. Their last final was tonight. They got that behind them, and now we get to focus on trying to tackle this next challenge. But yeah, it's going to be a crazy week. And if we are to get through this, most likely we'd have the number 1 seed, Ohio State. And we played them last year on their home courts. And it came down to the wire. We lost 4-2. The match was 2-all with 3 matches and 3 sets. And we were right there against a crazy home crowd and home officials and all of that. And I thought our team was right there. And there's a little bit of bad blood. So I think our guys would love to get through this week to have that opportunity. But I mean, that's the best team in the country right now by a long way. And so I think that's what you'd want to get through. But
Yeah.
if we get through, Columbia is going to be one of the biggest upsets of our season, and we'd be very fortunate to get through it. But we certainly aren't looking through that.
Coach, best of luck. Congratulations on your success, and very much appreciate your passion for not only the U of A, but obviously your program. You've made us all proud. Best of luck this weekend. You're America's team. Take down Columbia, and best of luck.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Discover more Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino.
Hi, folks. Here are your drinks.
Where having fun means racking up reward credits with the Caesars Rewards loyalty program that can be redeemed for food, free play, hotel stays, and more. Not only here in the city of Maricopa, but also at more than 50 Caesars properties coast to coast. From Harrah's Las Vegas to Caesars Palace in Atlantic City. What are you waiting for? Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino, the official sponsor of Play.
Great to have Coach Clancy Shields on, and best of luck to him and the men's tennis team. Wildcat Country is brought to you by Harrah's Auction Casino. They are our presenting sponsor, and Harrah's Auction is the only Valley casino with Caesars Rewards, the player's card that pays for Vegas and more. In fact, the reward credits you earn with Caesars Rewards can be redeemed for hotel stays, dining, and more at 50 destinations across the country, including Las Vegas, Lake Tahoe, New Orleans, and dozens of others. Sign up, play, and earn Caesars Rewards only at Harrah's Auction Casino. One card, 50 destinations to enjoy your perks. And we will have our buddy Mike Kintner on sometime this summer because, he's tight with Dr. Robbins, who's on his way out. And we'll want to get his take on a bunch of different things, just in addition to what's going on at Harrah's Auction. But Mike's a very interesting guy and is not shy with his opinions, as we found out the first time on the program. So looking forward to having him on sometime this summer just to catch up. But Shane, Clancy Shields, appreciate his passion.
Yeah.
Love how much he cares about his team. And I love hearing about the support of all of the other teams and how they're kind of rallying behind this men's tennis team.
Yeah. And certainly empathize with him as far as the the transition of the conference realignment and the super conferences that are coming and how that's impacting basically every sport that's not football and men's basketball, and that's kind of unfortunate. So I appreciate him being candid on that as well. Obviously he's got to control what he can control, but Arizona will forever be the final men's tennis Pac-12 regular season and tournament champion, and that's awesome. And hopefully it will not be the last conference championship that we enjoy before the Pac-12 is all said and done.
So Arizona, just to recap, they won the basketball co-championship, last Pac-12 championship, did not win the conference tournament. And now tennis, and made the tournament in women's basketball. Made a pretty darn good bowl game in football, second longest winning streak in the country. And now, Shane, we have baseball and softball, who are postseason bound, which I'm not sure we were really all that confident in. I know baseball, definitely not. I wasn't going into the season, but Chip Hale's done a great job. Another sweep this past weekend, and they took care of business against ASU on Tuesday night. Just kind of your thoughts on where they stand now and what you expect for the next couple of weeks before the Pac-12 tournament.
Yeah, they hit a bit of a rough patch last week, including the game against GCU, which I will not repeat the score.
Nope.
But they did right the ship with a sweep over Stanford, went over ASU. At ASU, like you said, they've won 20 of their last 24 games. They have a 2-game lead over Utah and a 2.5-game lead over Oregon State for first place in the Pac-12, which we would not have predicted a month ago. They have a 3-game set at Utah this weekend, and then they finish the regular season with a 3-game home series against Oregon State. So lots of conference and NCAA tournament implications there. I want to note that there are only 3 starting pitchers in the Pac-12 with an ERA under 3, and they all play for Arizona.
Is that right?
That's right. Clark Candiotti, who was the Pac-12 pitcher of the week after a complete game shutout against Stanford, and then Jackson Kent and Cam Walty. Now, previous Arizona teams have made late season runs with great hitting. This team's doing it with pitching, and they finished strong. They still have a very real chance to host a regional in the NCAAs. The last Baseball America projection I saw had them just outside of hosting a regional. Going to UC Santa Barbara, which would be the number 16 national seed, which says that they're right on the cusp. So they have a strong finish. They maybe take 2 out of 3 from Utah and Oregon State, and or win the conference tournament at the end of the year, then they have a chance to stay home in Tucson for regionals, which would be awesome.
I'll tell you what, they have done excellent. I don't know if I'm extending Chip Hale, but they were projected 9th out of 11 in the Pac-12 to start the year in the preseason, and now where they're at, that is so impressive. Now, how about Caitlin Lowe? I had a friend ask me the other day, why can't Arizona compete for national titles again? I mean, they did it for so many years.
Been a while.
And I said, I think those days are gone. I would not expect to see that again. Your kind of thoughts on that, Shane?
I've mentioned this before, but I know that, Mike Andrea, as legendary as he was and is at Arizona, 8 national championships speaks for itself. But his last decade or so was not quite as dominant, and so there's a bit of a decline. Some other programs might have been catching up in terms of recruiting and, I don't know, styles of play. I don't know the ins and outs of softball that well, but obviously some programs caught up to Arizona and maybe surpassed them. And I think Caitlin Lowe has taken over the program at that state. And so I think that's important to keep in mind. I do want to mention Taylor Beal was named the Pac-12 Softball Defensive Player of the Year, the second straight Wildcat to win that award after Allie Skaggs did it last year. I think the 5th overall Arizona player ever to win that award. So congrats to Taylor. Softball team, they begin Pac-12 tournament on Thursday. They're the number 5 seed. They'll play the 4th seed Washington in the first game, and they would most likely play UCLA if they win that game. So now Arizona, has an RPI of 18 in softball. Now, so it's my guess, just based on the RPI there. I haven't seen projections for them like I have for baseball, but my guess is they could potentially host a regional themselves with a strong showing in that tournament. They might have to win the whole thing. I'm not sure, but it seems like that's in play. But I think being ranked, I think is about. That to me is at least in Caitlin Lowe's 3rd season, at least where they should be. I think if you're judging Caitlin Lowe based on the height of Mike Andrea's success, you're being a bit unfair and unrealistic.
Listen, they made Oklahoma City. They made it to Oklahoma City in what, year 1 for her?
Yeah.
I mean,
where they crazy. It was a crazy run they had at the end, but yeah, they made it, and that's all that matters.
So, maybe you get hot and surprise us again. I don't know, something like that. I just kind of, I would like to see that again. Regardless, I would say that the fact that both teams are making the tournament is a win, because we didn't expect that. We thought there was a chance that both could miss it at the start of, as basketball was winding down. We're like, uh-oh. And then the baseball team caught fire. And then the softball team has been, 33-15-1 is nothing to be ashamed of. That's a good season in a really tough conference. Now, one last thing that I want to discuss, I want to get your feedback on this. Okay. I made a bet with an ASU friend. And he says, there is no way that Arizona is going to win more than 6.5 games.
No way.
And there is no way that ASU is going to win less than 6 games. Okay. And so I said, okay, here's a bet. I said, Arizona has to win 7 or more, and ASU has to win 5 or less, and I win. And if Arizona wins less than 7 and ASU wins more than 5, he wins, and otherwise it's a push. I feel like, now based on the odds, at the sports books are saying ASU's win total 4.5, Arizona's 7.5. Do you think I made a good bet? I know you're cynical and whatnot. Did I make a good 6.5, Shane? They got to win.
I think you're going to end up with a push. I think Arizona wins more. Well, wait. Well, first of all, does that include a bowl game? Or just
regular season.
Okay.
Just regular season. Yeah.
I would still take the over at 6.5 for Arizona. I think 7 is about right. Maybe 8. And we'll get it once we have a full roster. We'll get into it more. But as of now, I'm thinking 7 or 8 probably. But I think ASU, would they have to win less than?
They have to win 6 games for. They have to win 6 games for him to win. Oh. You're telling me that team's going 6-6?
That's possible.
There's no freaking way they're going. Yeah. There is no freaking way.
They've had a pretty good year in the transfer portal. I think they've improved it.
What do you mean they lost their best defensive player? Ed Woods is gone. They lost their best offense. I mean, they have lost so much. I'm sorry. If ASU wins 5 games, I would be impressed with what Kenny's doing over there. Yeah. I cannot see it.
Yeah. So if Arizona wins 7 and ASU wins 5, you win the bet?
I do.
Okay. Well, then I will lean you then. Yes. I think ASU wins 5 or 6. I think Arizona wins 7 or 8. As of now,
I think ASU wins 4, maybe 5. I think Arizona wins at least 8 or 9.
Okay.
I think that the schedule, to me, assuming health, is good enough to where Arizona should be able to win. They should be a preseason top 25 team.
Yeah.
I think anything short of 8 wins is a disappointment. I think maybe even that is a disappointment.
Yeah, and the thing that's kind of holding me back from picking Arizona to win more games. I mean, number one, they have to fill out their roster like everyone does. But number two, and the biggest thing is that just the coaching change. You just never know. As much as I like Brent Brennan, I think he's a great guy. I think his staff is going to do good things. Most of these guys played for someone else last year, and it's just it's just a big difference between coaching staffs and between the demeanors between the coaches, that you just never know how that's all going to play out until you see the results, right? It could be a hit from week one and everyone could buy in, but everything's just it's a complete change in management and a complete change in culture. And that to me is the big intangible going into the season.
All right, here's my thing, and we're going to talk about this ad nauseum over the summer. When you have a coaching change, usually there's a lot of players who will leave. Arizona pretty much lost Jonah Coleman, Ephesians Prysock, I guess Deuce Davis, and Bill Norton. And that's pretty much it. And my ASU buddy was saying, well, you don't have a defensive line. Yeah, but Arizona's defensive line last year was built in 1 year. Taylor Upshaw came from Michigan. Yeah. Bill Norton came from, these were guys that so I trust, and this roster is not done yet. As Brent told me, and as you just intimated, Shane, as you just said, this roster is going to evolve. With that said, I trust in Arizona's in-game coaching. I said this repeatedly, Shane. I didn't love Jed Fish's in-game coaching.
Yeah, I think eventually the talent caught up to his coaching because I think he coaches for very good players.
He recruited so well.
Yeah, like his coaching in the first year, like some of those plays were designed for guys who just couldn't execute. And by year 3, that was starting to come around. But yeah, I think some of his calls were still a bit, I don't know, iffy at times. So I think he was a great recruiter. I think that the guys he put on the field made him look better than he probably was. He was a great though. Look, he did fantastic things at Arizona, but I do think that Brent Brennan can certainly match him in terms of being an in-game coach. Yes.
All right. One last thing that we have to remember here, and we'll probably talk about this over and over as well. What's Arizona's record last year if Jaden DeLaura doesn't get hurt against Stanford?
Yeah, a fair question. Yeah, they probably would have lost that game and then maybe gone 500. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. The Stanford kicker was drafted in the NFL draft. And that was a guy who missed a chippy against Arizona. Just pointing that out. Arizona wins maybe 7 games if Jaden DeLaura is the quarterback and we don't see what Noah Fafita can do. But I can tell you they're not beating ASU 59-23. That's for darn sure. They're probably not putting it all over Utah like they did. Just pointing at, a lot to discuss. Nonetheless, great show as always. Thanks to Clancy Shields for joining us. Best of luck to his team, America's team this weekend. Take care of Columbia. For Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening. Thanks to our sponsors, Ice Shaker, and of course, Harrah's Auction Casino. This is Wildcat Country, and as always, bear down.